Joining us now, Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Jason Chaffetz. Jason, I want to pick up because this is fascinating. I was talking to Steve Hilton because you gave me an idea and this whole concept of, or I take that back. I was talking to Kevin Walling about, and Mark Lauder, about the whole, Kevin McCarthy maybe being challenged. And Mark seems to think maybe not, because he raises so much money that these people coming in owe him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that. It's a two-step dance. First, on Tuesday, they come in and they supposedly vote. But then you have all the way until the first part of January where you have to get to the floor and actually get to 218. And if your margin is real small and you get 10 Republicans saying, I'm sorry, Kevin McCarthy, but I'm not going to vote for you on the floor of the House, then you start to have the problems. When the margin is small, the leadership has problems. And I'm just telling you, this is scrambled eggs. As best as it is not for certain, and they will still be discussing it.
Leslie Marshall, if you were advising your party, and we've been talking about this, would you advise them to stay on the path they are on, which includes a lot of being disingenuous on behalf of the leader of the party, the man who's in the White House right now? Or would you say maybe there's a pivot to be had somewhere?
Oh, I think unless you have a wave of blue on my side, or just like on the other side and Jason's side, a wave of red, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to look at your party. There are a couple of things I've always said about my party. One, we've got to get our ground game. We've got to get more people to come out. Democrats don't come out in the numbers Republicans do in midterm elections, although we've seen the youth come out. We need others to come out as well. Two, we need to unite. We have too many fragmentations in our party. So do the Republicans. And three, you need to listen to the voters, because that's going to change issues. In Michigan, for example, it's abortion. But in a place like Texas, it's going to be immigration. And, you need to listen. So for some people, you're standing there and you're talking abortion, and that's not a kitchen table issue for some of those constituencies. And I said that before, and I'll continue to say that now going forward.
And it's interesting, Jason, because you look at what happened tonight, and you look at Florida, and you look at Pennsylvania, and these were disparate conclusions, like disparate countries were voting.
Yeah, I saw Steve Moore talking to you earlier. I think there's a lot of truth to the people in the Northwest or the Northeast that have moved to Florida. And a lot of them are successful. They're conservative. They got conservative values. And I think that portended well in certain parts. But look, if you're a Republican, you've got to go back and look at Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, Senator Tim Scott, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Governor Abbott. These people dominated. Look at Mike Lee out in Utah. Okay, he took that Allen wrench. It just put the screws to the so-called Democrat, the guy who's going to run as Mr. Independent. The polls saying, oh, it's neck and neck. It was never neck and neck. Mike Lee won that race by 15 percentage points. We haven't even talked about him on Fox News tonight because it wasn't ever a race. And the polling is just abysmal, Trace. Why millions of dollars are spent on polling? What did it really tell us? Where did they really get it right?
It's a great point, because the polling really has been so off for the past 3 or 4 cycles. Lastly, Leslie, I just want to know, you kind of look at your party and you look at some of the things that are going right and wrong, and I'm wondering if you believe that going forward, the Democrats are looking at things like the border and maybe reworking that, or do you think they just stand pat on that specific issue, which didn't seem to resonate all that much with Democrats?
I think they look at their base and their voters. I mean, it's going to vary state to state and within those districts inside those states. So again, if you're in Arizona or Texas, immigration is going to matter a lot more than if you're in Michigan, as we're seeing the numbers. And I know abortion was on the ballot there, one of 5 states in Michigan. But we saw that abortion overtook inflation in the economy among voters in the state of Michigan as their top priority.
Leslie, Jason, stand by. Let's bring in Freedom Works economist Steve Moore. Steve, you got a great shout out from Jason Chaffetz there, saying that you were, you had some good points there. I'm wondering, as you look at the overall night, and you admitted the last time you were on, you said, listen, I mean, I got it wrong. I got this whole thing wrong. But as you look at the map and you look at the night, Steve, what's your big takeaway?
So the reason I had it wrong is because I thought it was going to be the economy's stupid, but I'm not so sure it was, Trace. But, the real interesting thing from an economic standpoint is how will the economy, how will the the stock market respond to what happened tonight. I was just in our little break there. I looked at the futures market. The markets haven't really reacted much one way or the other right now. So I think that investors are trying to digest what happened. But here's the most important thing. Even in the worst case scenario for Republicans, they will have a 4 or 5 seat majority in the House, even if they don't win the Senate. Now, why is that important from an economic standpoint? I would make the case that the biggest problem we have in this country right now is runaway massive government spending and debt under Biden. And the Republicans, if they have that House majority, which they will, then they can stop the spending. You know, Joe Biden can't spend money if the House of Representatives doesn't approve it. Yeah. So I think that, you know, the markets are going to kind of react positively to that development.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say that because, you know, you've said it 1,000 times and so have others. The markets hate uncertainty, right? And so you would think that this would at least give them a little bit of certainty that whatever the president wants to do next, whatever bill that he wants to pass that might cost $1.9 billion, it's not going to happen. That might boost or buoy the markets.
Exactly right. And so if you look at those massive spending bills that passed, for the most part, not all of them, but most of them passed with only Democratic votes in the House and Senate. Now Biden's going to have to go to those Republicans, and whether it's Speaker McCarthy or someone else in the Republican Party who has that Speaker's gavel, he's going to have to negotiate. Now, I'll just put a little asterisk by what you just said. You know, the other thing that the markets love and the economy love is divided power in Washington. Right. And you know what? We're going to have that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's what I was saying is, hey, the markets want nothing more than nothing to happen. Don't do anything.
There you go.
East Coast, everybody's like, okay, let's go to bed. Yep. we got some stuff going on the West Coast. And Katie Porter could lose, and that's a hit.
Yeah. That would be a massive loss. I mean, Gold River, what's up? I mean, I love Sacktown's great. I would also add this. I've been watching Nevada very carefully. Right. And I think a lot of people sort of fell asleep on this, and I think Laxalt's sort of been creeping up. That is the one to watch. That happens, and I think a lot of people who went to bed thinking that, well, I guess it wasn't our night, might be rethinking that.
If we could put that up on the screen, we'd bring Jason Chaffetz back in. Jason, I mean, it's kind of interesting here because, you know, I've been talking about this. Bill Hemmer did a great job at this all night, trying to explain the demographics and trying to explain the topography and what is where and what counties are where. And just so we know, if we put up the Senate race in Nevada, you have it right there, Adam Laxalt at 47%. Well, it just went away. We had it for a brief second. If we can find it again and find out how much of it is, it's interesting because you have up in Reno area, right? Very conservative. It's out kind of in the wilderness in the Sierra Nevada mountains, south of Lake Tahoe. Washoe County always goes toward Republicans. And then you go toward Clark County, which is Las Vegas and the surrounding areas. It's the biggest county in Vegas. And there you have the race right there, 47.1. It went away again to 50. And this thing is getting much closer. Jason, your thoughts?
I think Laxalt actually pulls that off. You got these 15 rural counties, places like Elko and Ely that'll come in strong for Laxalt. I think one of the other undercurrents here that will get a lot of attention once you actually dive into the numbers is how well Republicans did with Hispanics. You look at what happened in Miami-Dade, you look at what happened in Florida, but then you start to look at other places like Texas. You know, one of my former House colleagues in Idaho, a guy named Raul Labrador, was elected the Attorney General of Idaho. Not a lot of people thought that somebody who was born in Puerto Rico would become the Attorney General in Idaho. Okay, so the Republicans are doing really well with the Hispanics, and that will portend itself to do well in both Arizona and Nevada for Republicans.
And Leslie, it's a fair point because, you know, you look at what's happening in Florida and you look at what happened in Miami-Dade County, and then you look at Nevada and you look at Clark County and you think, you know, maybe there's a point to be had there if this thing turns around and if Adam Laxalt can take this race because of a push among some Hispanics in Nevada, which is a growing part of the population, especially in Clark County, then, you know, there's an argument to be had.
Latinos don't all vote with one mind, and Florida and Nevada are two very different states, and these are very different candidates. I wouldn't agree with that. You have to look at the issues that, you know, yet again, 3 states, Colorado, Nevada, and New Mexico, Latinos consider abortion to be their #2 issue next to the economy and inflation.
Right.
And you have a female Democrat who is, pro-choice and talking against the Dobbs decision. And you have a lot more youth coming out to vote state by state. Nevada is no exception. I don't think the fat lady's getting on stage to sing yet for a Republican victory.
I want to put this back up on the screen because we just showed another flash. This is the Nevada Senate race. Look at this now, Jason. I mean, you've got 48.2% for Laxalt, Cortez Masto now at 49%. That thing is with 62% of the vote counted. And most of that vote is coming from Clark County. And so a lot of those outlying counties, and Nevada has a bunch of them that are on the Arizona border, on the California border, up near, Lake Tahoe and those areas that are very, very conservative. That right there is a very good sign for Adam Laxalt, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Utah borders Nevada, and I got to tell you, those numbers come in huge. They're smaller counties, smaller populations. Yep. Like 90% of Nevada is owned by the state and federal government, so people just can't flat out live there. But I got to tell you, Laxalt will dominate there. I think Laxalt wins that race, particularly when you got 38% of the vote that hasn't even come in yet.
And we talked.
You would not want to be the Democrat at this point. I think she loses.
And we talked a lot about this. Is in the next neighboring state in Arizona. Still, a lot of that vote still has not been counted in Maricopa County, and who knows what happens to that race between Mark Kelly and Blake Masters. But it all comes down to Georgia. Then, if they can pick up Nevada, then it all comes down to Georgia, Leslie, and the Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock race, which is looking like it's very much going to go to a runoff on December 6th. Leslie, give us 30 seconds and we'll get you out of here.
I would say it's probably definitely going to go to a runoff, so we're going to have a nail biter. And I think we always knew it was going to come down to Georgia, didn't we? I think that's something Democrats and Republicans could agree on. But I still think my party is going to maintain control of the Senate.
Well, okay. We're all all the GOP whistling past the graveyard, and all of a sudden there's new life. Like, wait, who won? Wait a minute, is this a fight again? Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you, everybody. Much joining us now, Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Jason Chaffetz. Welcome to you both. I find it, Jason, to you first, fascinating because you look at the strategy, right? And you look at, we go back to 2020 when Joe Biden, he just kind of sat in the basement. He sat in the basement and it seemed to work. And now you have all of these candidates refusing to debate, right? You have Katie Hobbs in Arizona, didn't want to debate Kari Lake because, Kari Lake's a bully, and Kari Lake does. And so it appears, and we're clearly, I'm not calling this because Arizona is early, but it appears so far that some of these strategies have worked. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, they truly have, Trace. Look, it's something like 98% of incumbents win re-election. And despite the country saying, hey, about 88% feel like we're going in the wrong direction, by and large, the country kept going in the same trajectory. I think the high point for the Republicans was obviously what happened in Florida. They better look at Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio because they made some big things happen there, coupled with strong showings in the House. That was a tsunami there in Florida for the Republicans. But for the rest of the nation, terribly disappointing for Republicans. And there better be a reality check there, because if you can't beat the Democrats with all those main issues on the table and an ineffective president who can't communicate, a vice president who's absent on the political stage, then when are you going to win? And if you can't win in that scenario and really be able to take the fight to the Democrats, you got some big issues going into 2024, and there better be some changes, or Republicans are going to take another shellacking. They should have dominated tonight, and they didn't.
And it's amazing to me, Leslie, that you hear Jason, you hear other political analysts saying, you know what, this is a bad night for Republicans. And it's not often that it's a bad night for Republicans when they likely regain the House. And we don't know about the Senate. Who knows what happens in the Senate? They may very well retake the Senate. But it seems to me like Democrats are satisfied with the outcome because they were told for so many weeks that the wave was coming.
Yeah, not a wave. And hey, Lindsey Graham said this is not a red wave. I'm agreeing with some of the things Jason says. I'm agreeing with Mark Thiessen, who was on earlier tonight. And I think the Republican Party needs to take a good, hard look in the mirror. Look, Ron DeSantis in his state of Florida, which is no longer a swing state, clearly a red state, he's the Republican champion, not former President Donald Trump. And if you look at the majority of the candidates that Donald Trump backed, not looking, like it was so good. And that fringe element of the Republican Party, those election deniers, that is not helpful to the Republican Party, and they need to look in the mirror and they need to regroup.
I think a lot of Republicans, maybe you're right, but I think a lot of Democrats also have to look in the mirror. The Democrats still lost the House, Leslie. Maybe the numbers were not what they thought, but the Democrats still lost the House. And to say that only Republicans need to look in the mirror and everything Democrats are doing is hunky-dory, you look at what happened in New York. Kathy Hochul won by 4. Maybe 4, maybe 5 points. But the rest of the ticket, the Democrats on the rest of the ticket are getting binged out left and right in New York because there was something going on. And that something was her ignoring the crime issue and a lot of other things that New Yorkers were like, OK, enough is enough. Go ahead.
Well, yeah.
Look, I would agree with. Oh, sorry. I thought it was me. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead. Now, there's nothing to be too excited about on the Democratic side of the aisle. I totally agree with that. Again, it was the night of incumbents. And if you were an incumbent, you pretty much got to stay in your seat. But, you lose the Sean Maloney seat in New York. There's some real problems that the Democrats have. They didn't exactly convince the country that, hey, if you stick with us, then we're going to get more of this. Like, what was that argument? And certainly they weren't going out and defeating the Republicans. I think Republican expectations were 20, 30, 40 additional seats in the House, 52, 53, 54 in the Senate, and it just didn't get there.
Yeah, Leslie, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll give you the last word.
Look, I think when you're talking about double digits, like 20, 30, some people are saying 50, and it might be 1 to 5. Heck, some people are saying it may not even be control. You may end up with equal or less the power in the majority that the Democrats have now. I don't think that's great. Gubernatorial, you have Massachusetts flipped to blue, Maryland flipped to blue. You have Democrats putting forth so many firsts, and one of the things I want to personally say as a Democrat, thank you to the youth voters. They registered to vote, they came out to vote, and a lot of them are actually going to be going to Washington, and I think that's pretty awesome for the future of our nation.